the literary terms. You'll get introduced to the literary terms first, and literary forms, whether it is in prose, drama, poetry, whatever it is, you'll be understanding what are literary forms in prose as well as in poetry. And then you'll be also knowing about literary movements, and a little bit of history, what happened in history in 16th century, in 17th century, 18th century, and 19th century, and what are the movements that happen in in those time, modernism and postmodernism. So your book has five blocks. If you take it to the first block, it is all about literary forms, literary terms. Then it comes to literary forms 1 and literary forms 2. You both have two literary forms. The one speaks about poetry and drama, and the second form speaks about prose and fiction. Okay, this is all about your, this is a short, small glimpse about your textbook, what all you're going to learn. So, there is two terms here you need to understand. So it more or less looks like same, and if you think about this terms, it looks like same, but there is complete different meanings of these two terms that we are going to discuss now. First, to understand what actually is literature. So, when you speak about English literature, this English literature, when you listen about this term, you have to understand that English literature, this literature is all about English speaking countries. So, the literature which came from the English speaking countries. And what are those English speaking countries? You can say it as you can use USA. Okay, so these countries speak in English, and whatever these countries have written, spoke, it may be a storytelling or a drama or a poetry or a prose or a story, but any type of novels, whatever they have written, the English speaking countries, whatever they have written, now we will call it as English literature. But what is literature in English? It is nothing but, this is a term that literature written in English, no matter where it come from. So whoever is writing, you and me, or any other person, or any other person in any country is writing uh, any literature that is in English, then you will call it as literature in English. But English literature is different, and literature in English is different. So, uh, as I told you, English literature is from the English speaking countries, that is UK and USS. Most of the work written, and as we see, for example, in Shakespeare's plays, and you take Jane Austen's novels or Charles Dickens, all these people from UK or USA, they whatever they have written, we will call it as an English literature. And for example, if you take Indian works or African or Caribbean authors writing some English content, um, all these people, Indian, African, and Caribbean, whatever the literature is coming from these countries can be called as literature in English. So, for the focus is broader, covering literature from all over the world. This covers literature from all over the world as long as it is written in English. Even if English is not the native language of the author or the country. So now you got the difference between English literature and literature in English. It doesn't matter whether the author is from the native background of English speaking country. It doesn't matter like that. So when any author writing from Indian, African, and Caribbean works, you can call it as literature in English. So this is a simple difference you have to understand when you come across a term like English literature and the literature in English. So, mm, uh, after you understand the glimpse of whatever the literary terms, how you write, and what are the devices, you can say it as tools or devices, you have to know how to write something. Um these literary terms
Excuse
are
me, ma'am. Are you teaching through this book?
sorry.
Excuse me. Are you using this book for this class?
Yes, the semester 2.
हाँ सेमेस्टर 2 पार्ट हाफ के बाद में है. Which page number?
Semester,
Which page number for semester 2?
पकड़ो जरा.
this is a class. Okay, you have some.
Semester 2 नहीं है.
Is this not BA English program, first year, semester 2, introduction to the English literature?
Okay, so no subject. ये नहीं क्या पूछोगे?
Not this one.
Introduction to the English literature. This is a class of introduction to the English literature.
Okay.
So you're not aware of which class is going on?
Because there was no clear message, madam, from
Okay.
our.
Okay, then fine. I'm going to take introduction to the English literature. This is semester 2.
Yeah, I am going to have semester 2. And the problem, madam, same time there is two classes, 3 p.m. Urdu and English. Both how we can attend, madam? There was no clear instructions from our center. And
Yeah,
timing also for both 3 p.m.
yeah, but this is only English class. This is not Urdu class, right?
Urdu and English
Have you
both are
opted?
having same.
Yeah, but the Urdu students will go to Urdu class, right? This is an English class.
No, what I mean, madam, same. I have both subjects. The
Okay, you have
same time,
opted for two subjects.
so 3 p.m. both classes will be scheduled.
Okay,
So
okay,
how we can attend, madam?
yeah,
Two classes.
so this is something which you should talk to administrator. Okay, I am only your English teacher. I don't have any answers for your question. I understand your problem, but you should ask some other person, some concerned person. You can go to administration department and you can ask them. Okay, now let's take our class. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So, please, this is a book, Introduction to the English Literature, that is semester 2. So we already wasted half an hour. Then we just have only half an hour. Please try to understand and just only listen to the class. Now, so we have understood what is the difference between literature and literature in English, English literature and literature in English. So our literary terms, when you will come across all these literary terms, you will understand. Uh, you will understand students of the literature who knows literature will understand or expected to be able to say when you read a book, you will say it is uh, anyone can say whether it is a good book or bad book. For example, when we see a movie, we'll say it is because of our perceptions, we will analyze it and judge it as a good movie or a bad movie. In the same way, when you read a book, you will say it as a good book or a bad book. You will understand the things there, and you will say whether it is a good book. Everyone will say, everyone will analyze it, everyone will judge it. But people who come from literature background will exactly analyze it and tell us why the book is good and why the book is bad. You will understand and deeply what are the literary terms the author have used, in what terms he has fallen short. I mean, what has wrong in it, and you will understand the deeper version of the author what he's trying to say, what terms, what devices, what tools of literary has he taken and he has written in his book. So you will deeply understand about the book, and then you will say it is whether it is a good book or bad book. So people, children, for example, students, in order to understand and explain and justify your opinions, they have to familiarize themselves with the concepts of of a text and equip themselves with the tools of analysis. So when you will able to do, when you will come across all these literary forms and terms, when you have a knowledge, then you can analyze it properly. So now first let us dive into our first first section, that is called literary terms. So there are so many, plenty of literary terms. If you take it from, for example, from alphabet A to alphabet Z or Z. So till there, you have so many literary terms that you have to know what is what. So your first lesson is telling about literary terms that has from A to H. So So literary terms from A to H, you will understand, you will have allegory, alliteration, allusion, anachronism, anagornosis, anagram, analogy, anaphora, anecdote, antagonist, anthemeria, anthropomorphism, anticlimax, anti-hero, anti-metabole, antistrope, antithesis, archaic, you can call it as archaic or archaism, aside, sonance, atmosphere. So these are all the terms which starts with A. So there are so many literary terms with alphabet A. Before we go deep into our today's topic, let us spend some time understanding the linguistic landscape of India, focusing on native languages and the languages that we are transported from the other regions. So, allegory, the first one, if you see allegory, allegory is nothing but a story in which the characters represent abstract qualities or ideas. For example, if you take Ramayana, Ravana represents evil and Rama represents goodness. It is about our Indian context. For example, if you take in George Orwell's novel Animal Farms, he have written a novel called Animal Farm. In that, all the animals in his story is playing a character of political figures and events. So, if in a story a person is playing an evil thing and the other person is playing a good thing, so um and in Animal Farm, like George, or he will in his novel, animals are all playing a term called political figures. So this is a when you write, when you write a novel and you're taking your characters and portraying it as a good, something good and something evil, or you're portraying it as an political view, or you're taking a character and you're trying to portray something, you're going to you're trying to get something different things, like in Animal Farm, animals all are portraying as a political figure. So when you are trying to bring something, write something and bring like this kind of text, so that you can call it as an allegory. So and the next term is alteration. Alteration is nothing but the repetition of the first consonants. So you are, I don't need to go into the grammatical part like consonants, what are consonants and what are syllables. So if you take here, there is a Christmas poem called Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So in this, this example has written in your textbook. So in this, the first consonants in the group of the words as in the following example. So the repetition of the here, the author has taken the Rudolph. That means the first consonant here is R. So the R is keep on repeating in the sentence. If you see Rudolph the red and nosed and reindeer. So R has been repeated again and again. So the first consonant which is a main consonant, is, if you see, it's slightly repeated again and again. So this kind of repetition is called alteration. So the author is trying to do something, experimenting something like this kind of text, then you can call it as an alteration. So whenever we are writing something, whenever the author is writing something, so by the text, by the content, whatever he has written, you can say whether it is an alteration or what is an allegory, what is an elegy, it is a ballad. So there are so many concepts of literary terms you have to come across and you have to learn. So this is kind of alteration. So repeating, your the main consonant and the first consonant is repeated again and again. This is called alteration. So when the other term is called allusion. So a reference to something or someone, often from another literary work. And what example do we have for this? We have the title of the novel, Things Fall Apart, by Chinu. It comes from the line with the W.B. Yeats poem, The Second Coming, The Wasteland, by T.S. Eliot. The one another beautiful work by T.S. Eliot is The Wasteland, and compromises numerous allusions to the works of the Shakespeare's. So this, the Holy Grail, etc. These are the things of allusion. Then the term called anachronism. Anachronism is nothing but against time. You are writing something against the time, for example, or something out of its chronology. It is not in the timely order. When the context is not in a order, timely order, or against the time. So something like that is called as anachronism. For example, if you take the work of Shakespeare, that is called Hamlet, in that the play has been attending the university University of Halle Wittenberg, which did not exist in the 7th or 13th century. So here, in that play, Shakespeare is using an university name called Halle Wittenberg. But in 7th or 13th century, there is no such university called Halle Wittenberg. But still, the Shakespeare has used that term in his work called Hamlet. So the time that was depicted in the play. So there is an odd, the chronology of the time is in an odd way. So the time, it is against the time. So something against the time is called anachronism. So another thing is anagnosis, which is nothing but especially used in tragedy. When you're writing something sad, or you're writing about the death of a person, or you're mourning about a person, something about the tragedy. So there you will use such kind of an anagnosis. It refers to a moment when there is some special revelation, discovery, or a moment when the main character discovers something about himself. So this kind of situation you can mainly see in the movies. But in the movies also, anything in the movie is from the novel again. So the writers, that's why you can see these kind of context in mostly in the Shakespeare. That's why anytime whenever we have come across any context, we mostly take the examples of Shakespeare, because in the literature, in the writing form, he has brought some reforms. Before Shakespeare and after Shakespeare, the things of the literature is different. lit, lit Shakespeare, whatever he has written, he brought from different reforms in his writing. So whenever he wants to bring a surprising element, or a U-turn kind of thing in his dramas or in his novels, he will portray it in a different way. So this man has started um, such kind of writings for the first time. So mostly we tend to take his examples. So whenever you come across a movie, there is a special element before the interval. Something, a surprising moment comes, and then there will be a break for the movement. For example, if you take Bahubali, if I take Bahubali for an example, when the first part has come, it has ended saying that why Kattappa has killed Bahubali. So there is a surprising element there. So why when Kattappa himself is a good man, why did he kill Bahubali? Why did he kill the protagonist of the movie? He is a main character in the movie, but still so there is a twist there. So this kind of twist has first brought by Shakespeare. So this kind of twist you can call it as anagnosis, that which is nothing but the tragic element. When an author tries to bring a tragic element, the main character, in a revelation way, or a discovery moment, you can call it as a discovery surprising element. So this is called anagnosis. The next term is anagram. This is nothing but a form of wordplay in which letters of a word or phrase can be rearranged to make a new word or phrase. For these, we have already homophones, synonyms, homograms, such kind of things are we have already come across when we were in a childhood. So there is a brushing, just kind of let us brush up our old memory. That is nothing but anagram is nothing but whenever there is a word, and when you shuffle it or mix it and bring out a new word. If you see their example, it is a state. So when you shuffle the letters in the state, it there you are getting a new word called taste. So in a word or in a phrase, whenever you shuffle the letters and words and you come with a new word or a new phrase, it is said to be as anagram. And the next one is analogy. It is a comparison in which an idea, a thing, or a person is compared to another in order to make it clear. It is kind of comparison. Analogy is nothing but it's a kind of a comparison of an idea or a concept. Let's see the examples for it. Green is to go and red is to stop. So whenever you see the traffic lights, you will directly understand whenever you come across with a red light, your brain automatically tells you to stop. So there is an idea here. A stop for you making to stop. There came up come up with an idea called the red light. So it's an idea to compare. So red is for stop and green is to go. So it is comparing. So again, for another example, you can call it as Kalidas. Kalidas, our great Indian writer, who is compared to Shakespeare's. So Shakespeare is the father of writing, or whatever we call it, as a hero of the concepts, whatever he bought. So we are telling Shakespeare, Kalidas, our writer, as an Shakespeare. Sometimes we also came across the Aishwarya. We call Aishwarya Roy as an Indian Angelina Jolie. So there is a Hollywood actor called Angelina Jolie. So our Indian Angelina Jolie is Aishwarya Roy. So people say like that. So when you compare to an idea or to a concept, then you can call that as a analogy. So as a literary person, now whenever somebody is comparing something to an idea or a concept, you will understand it as an analogy. So you have to understand what is analogy, what is anagram. And the second one is anapist. Anapist. So here, a device in a poetry when two unstressed syllables are followed by the stressed syllable. So it is kind of confusion, but it is very easy to understand. Please concentrate. A device or a poetry when two unstressed syllables all followed by stressed syllable. So there are syllables and consonants in your sentence. So when there are so many syllables, so first two syllables are unstressed, and then third syllable is stressed. For example, in a fraction of a minute. So here, in a fraction. So in is one syllable, a is another syllable, and fraction is another syllable. Here you are stressing in the third syllable. So when you are stressed by the third syllable. That means when first two syllables are unstressed and the third syllable is stressed. So such kind of poetry devices are called anapest. So the next one is anaphora, a literary and a rhetorical device in which a word or a group of words is repeated at the beginning of the sentence to add emphasis and create an artistic effect. For instance, in his famous speech of 1963, Martin King Luther Jr. repeats the phrase, I have a dream, several times to achieve a dramatic effect. So when you're storytelling, when you're narrating, when you're writing, some phrases are um, repeated again and again. So when you start, you say the sentence, and in the middle you will again repeat sometimes, and in the end you will again conclude with this things like, for example, here the beautiful example by Martin King Luther in his speech in the year of 1963, he started saying, I have a dream. So in his speech he repeat that sentence again and again. I have a dream. I He starts with his speech of I have a dream and ends with the speech, this is his dream. So to bring a dramatic effect, so to attract the people who are listening, to make them understand what he's really thinking. So these kind of devices are tend to call as anaphora. So anaphora is nothing but you will take a sentence, a group of words, then you will try to repeat them so as to you want to get the opposite person to understand what you are trying to say. So taking to the next thing, anecdote, a short or interesting story. This is the thing. Now the most of the storytellers, or if you say stand-up comedians, or anyone who is trying to talk, for example, in a TED Talks or anything, if you try to listen to them carefully, they will first come up with a short and interesting story, then they will jump into the main topic, whatever they wanted. They directly don't want it to, they will not directly go to the main topic. First, to make the audience minds interested, so they will come up with a humorous story or a short story or an interesting short element. They will try to attract the audience. Then when the audience are really listening to him, or if, for example, if somebody trying to talk a topic, before that, if you say a small anecdote, every person is eyes on you. So if it is a joke, they will all laugh, and then after laughing they will try to listen, because they will think that the audience will think that he is trying to say something again, a humorous thing. Let us concentrate. So this is on a trick, or this is a trick they play. When you start a main topic, first they will give a small anecdote. This is called a short or interesting story for an amusing event, or tries to support to demonstrate the some point. So stories like the boy who cried, the wolf, and the hare and the tortoise. So why, when we are explaining children, teachers who understand will understand this carefully. When you are trying to tell your students in the classroom to study well, or to give the moral motivation stories, or teachings, you will try to first take them to the story, short story, where what happened in the real life. Then people will get connected, and then you will um, you will say your main story. So this is kind of anecdote we all tend to use. Next is antagonist, the major character who opposes the protagonist. So in any story, in any movie, or in any novel, you have two main characters, that is protagonist and antagonist. So here protagonist is a hero and the antagonist is anti of the protagonist. So here the term antagonist is nothing but the villain of the story. All right. And the next one is And the next one is antimaria, anthropomorphism, anticlimax, antihero. There are so many, we cannot come across all through these things in one class. Then um, you have to definitely go through these questions, these terms, and then there are the fill in the blanks at the end of the each topic from A to now. There is okay, will and the rest of eight literary terms you have to read for yourself, because you don't I cannot explain all the things in one class. Then there are only few literary terms for the alphabet B, that is called ballad, and build and grow and goes chroman and blank verse. So there are three. So what that is ballad, and that is build and Goscroman and blank verse. So, ballad is nothing but a narrative poem in which tales of hardship, love, romance, and adventure are narrated. Sometimes they are in the form of song or dance. So, we mostly use these words ballad. So, please try to understand ballad is nothing but the narration or a dance or a form of dance or a sing or a song which has all the elements of a lifestyle. In a person's life, there are hardships, there are good moments, there is love, there is romance, there is adventure. So these all terms is covering in one story or in one song or in a dance or in a storytelling. Then that kind of writing is called ballad. For example, day after day, we stuck nor breathe nor motion, as ideal as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. So this is an example from T.S. Coleridge in the work called The Rim of the Ancient Mariner. So this the Rim of the Ancient Mariner, if you are going for MA classes also, there you will find this poem completely written. So it's an amazing work by Coleridge, The Rim of the Ancient Mariner. Here in this poem, this Coleridge has come across with all the elements in his life. So there is some adventure in the poem. There is love of nature, love for a person, and there is romance, and there is hardship also, and there are good moments also. So this is a good example for a ballad. And the next term called build and grow man, a story of the growing up of the character often used in some kind of fiction that focus on the growth of its main character, psychologically, morally, or spiritually, or form of youth or adulthood. You, this is called build and grossman. There is a man in the term, so you understand like this. So building, there is a build also in the term, so you understand like there is a building of a man from a childhood to adult from a man. So in any in any writing, if there is a growth, if there is a growth, no matter whether it is in the character, if a person is a bad character before, and then he tends to learn good things, and he change himself, and by the end of the story, if he becomes a good character, the change in the character, or the change, if that is maybe the fiction story or a non-fiction story, or or it may be the religious way also. I mean the spiritual way also. If there is a difference, before the person was non-spiritual and later the person is spiritual. So in a story, in a telling, if the main character has a growth in any way, in any such way, like in a character way or a fiction way or a non-fiction way, or in a growth of his wealth, or you can go for a moral and psychological or a spiritual form, or if a person is from the time of from the youth to the adulthood and to the man. So these differences, if it is shown in any writing, then that is called build and gross man. This is another term in the B. So then there is a term called blank verse. You will come across these many times, which is blank verse is nothing but unrhymed lines of poetry, usually in iambic pentameter. So here if you come across this iambic pentameter, so there is if you come poems are generally written in 4 lines, 8 lines, 6 lines, 12 lines. It is often the sonnet or a poem. It's almost always measured in a iambic pentameter. If it is pentameters, that means this poem should contain 5 lines. If it is hetra and if it is dia, if it is iambic diameter, then it has to be only 2 lines. Dia means two, you know already. So if it is dia, then you have the poem should be in 2 lines. If it is iambic pentameter, penta, you know that it's a mathematical term. Penta is 5 lines. So either in the poetry or in the drama, a lot of modern poetry is written in a blank verse. So blank verse is mostly seen in the modern poetry. Also, many poets and dramatists like Marlowe, Shakespeare, and Milton used blank verse. So let us see what is this blank verse. For example, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. The struts and frets his are upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Citadel, today by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And there is a blank space there. There is a big hyphen there, you can see. So this is the blank space. So there is a space whenever they are trying to say something and they are giving a space there. So these blank poetries, blank verses are mostly seen in the modern poetry. And who are these writers? Mostly wrote in the blanks verse, that is Marlowe, Shakespeare, and Milton. Then, then we'll go to the next alphabet called C. And in C, you will see so many literary terms. Caesura, the first one, canon, canto, catastrophe, catharsis, circumlocution, cleage, climax. I don't need to explain about the climax. Climax is nothing but the end of the story. So colloquialism, concite, conflict. Conflict is a quarrel or you know, consonants and connotation. So let us fastly read about any of this important. Let us know about circumulation. So circumulation is nothing but a roundabout, which is an ambiguous and paradoxical way of expressing things, ideas, or views, or even referring to a person. So this is explanation is in an ambiguous way or a paradoxical way. This is called circumulation. What is cleage? An expression that has been overused to the extent that it loses its original meaning of or novelty. For example, last but not the least, we usually use this when we are announcing somebody, and when the last person comes, we usually tells last but not the least. When so as the least person should not think in a bad way or go low thinking that he is the last person. So just to cheer him up, we keep on saying the last but not the least, or every cloud has a silver lining, or all the glitters is not gold. These you can There is a term called idiom also. So it is kind of idiom but not really the idiom, but these we kind of this kind of expression is overused, and sometimes it loses its original meaning. The original meaning has been lost here, last but not the least, but we tend to use again and again. This is called a cliche. Okay. And the other term called connotation. This is nothing but indirect and implicit meaning, includes all the social, cultural, and implied associations of a particular word. For instance, the color white connotates holiness, purity, peace, and scaredness. And denotation is the opposite way, the other way. So connotation is for good things, and denotation is something you're expressing in a demeaning form, in a deep form. You're kind of demeaning it. For example, when it is sadness, or it is an evil thing, we will compare something evil with the black. So this is kind of denotation. For connotation, it is like good things like color, white color, and tends to have holiness, purity, and peace. That's why people, if you go in a spiritual way, also white dove or white pigeon, you will call it as a holy one. So these kind of things are called connotation and denotations. So consonants, the repetition of the consonant sounds at the beginning, middle, or end of the word. So if you are keep on repeating the consonant sounds again and again, whether it is at the beginning or the middle or the end of the word, is called consonants. So here are for your check check your progress. Here are few examples and fill in the blanks for you to understand, and you can fill those examples once if you read all the literary terms. Then there is a term with the D. D is denotation, as I told you, and then is diascope, dissonance. A diascope is a repetition of the word or the phrase. So whenever you write something if you say if you want to write it, you can see these kind of writings mostly in the poems. They tend to repeat the first letters, or there are exciting ones, like if you take horror, you'll say horror, horror, the horror of it. So here the word has repeated twice. It is called diascope. What is dissonance? The lack of harmony and disagreement. In dissonance writings, you will lack harmony, and there is there is disagreement for the writing. If such kind of writings are called dissonance. Then there is a doppelganger. So I have come across these words many a times, and the doppelganger is nothing but the double of a person, or a same look-alike a person, or a person's doubled, a ghost or a shadow of a person. There can be a shadow. If my shadow falls in the writings or in the movies or in a storytelling, there's a writer writing about the person and his shadow. Then there tend to be, he used the doppelganger, or there can be a same a look-alike person, or we'll usually in our terminologies we call it as double action. So in the movies, when the hero is doubled or heroine is acted twice, we'll say it as a double action. So it, it is kind of the same thing, doppelganger. The next thing is dramatic irony, a situation in which the audience watching a play knows something that the characters on the stage are not aware of it. It is called dramatic irony. So then there is a term with E. Okay, there is a there are so many terms, literary terms with E. Here, elegy, enjambment, epigraph, and epigraph. There are two terms here, epigram and epigraph. They sound the same, but they have a different meaning. Elegy is nothing but the memoriam, the poem written in the morning of a dead person. So if we are thinking about a person and his in his memory or in her memory, remembering them, if we are writing something, it is called as elegy. Remember that. So Alfred Tennyson, who is a great author, has written a thing called In Memoriam. And why did he written? This he has written on the death of his friend Arthur Hallam. Alfred Tennyson has mm, the best friend called Arthur Hallam. When he passed away, on his memory, he has written something called In Memoriam. So such kind of works are said to be an elegy. So whenever you come across the lyrics writing somebody about the in memory or a poem or a song, you can call it as an elegy. So John Milton also wrote the pastoral elegy, in which in when the setting of the poem is rustic as in John Milton's Lycidas, written on the death of his friend Edward King. John Milton also wrote for his friend Edward King, and then the writing of his elegy is called Lycidas. So these two, if you come across and you read about those things, you will see that the person has written everything in memory of that, of his friend or of the other person. So everything is written about the other person in remembering them. It is called an elegy. So there is an epic. When you come across the word epic, epic is nothing but it is a long poem. So the big poem, the small poems are called sonnets, and as I told you, they have a, we have measured it with the meters. So you will so it's call them pentameter, diameter, something like that. But if it is a long poem, the narrating and the adventures of the heroic figures such as Homer's The Odyssey, for example, in the work called Odyssey, Homer has written it. So in that work, you can see the long narrating style that is called epic. Whenever you see a long narrating style of a poem, it is called an epic. So now the other thing is epigram, a brief, interesting, witty, and striking statement. So epigram. Okay, Aisha, I am teaching from the book Introduction to the English Literature. This book name is Introduction to the English Literature 2. And this is the semester 2 BA English program. And I am teaching you from the first block literary terms. This book is all about the literary terms, forms, about the poetry, prose, drama, whatever it is, whatever the terms, whatever the literary forms are there, you will just try to understand. There is no novel here and there is no poems in here. In this book, you will only understand about what are the tools and devices the authors, the writers have taken and they wrote their writings. So you will understand all the terms and all the forms. And I am teaching you the first lesson, the first block is literary forms. And you have A to Z. There are plenty and then many of literary forms with the letter A, with the letter B, with the letter C. There are so many literary forms. And I'm again telling you, this is a book, Introduction to the English Literature, Semester 2. And I am going to take your class, the rest of all the classes for this book called Introduction to the English Literature. The next Saturday and the next Sunday also you have classes. So this is a time 3 to 4. I'll be taking your class, and this I'll be teaching you the next blocks there. So there is a term again called epigram. Epigram is nothing but the brief, interesting, witty, striking statement. For example, reading Macbeth, a man full conference, a ready man writing, make it the man exact. So if any interesting statement or a line, if you come across, then you can call it as epigram. And there is another term called epigraph. Don't get confused. Epigraph is placing a quotation or a sentence of another writer at the beginning of one's work or a document. So if we are writing something and we are amused and obsessed with another writer and we are taking his quote, we will always mm, uh, place them in quotations. We will not directly write them because it is some other's work and some other saying. So if it is some other saying, we will always put them in quotations. So whenever you are writing something and before that, you will take some others things and you will place them in quotes, then it is said to be as epigraph. Then there is epilogue, where a prologue is placed at the beginning of the literary work. Epilogue comes at the end of the work. It is written generally to cover the loose ends of the story or offer satisfaction to the readers regarding the fate of the characters after the climax. Sometimes epilogues also hint at the possible sequel to the next installment of the story. So we usually see these kind of things nowadays in all the movies. So when there is a part 2, part 3 coming for another for the story, the director tries to end the scene, end the climax. In his conclusion, he will tell what happens in the next part, or he will tell what we did not see. If the time is too far, if the time is taking too long, and you have to end the story there itself, you will try to end with the epilogue uh, saying something that you cannot see in the story, and you will try to end with an epilogue. And epilogue can be the missing statements in the story, or the upcoming part 2. Part two's introduction also can be in the epilogue. So epilogue is nothing but the climax or the sequel, explaining of the climax or the sequel. Now, there is another term called epiphany. Okay, it's time up. I'll wind up the class. Thank you, everyone.